Ladies, gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Eugene Yelchin, our new very honorary this year, speaking about his book, Breaking Stalin's Nose. And I have 5 questions for you, Eugene.
Okay.
Would you like?
Yes.
Breaking Stalin's Nose is so unusual in many respects, I'm curious to know how it came to be published. How did you go from doing picture books to creating Breaking Stalin's Nose, and how was it initially received by your editor?
Well, it was received very positively.
Just one.
Originally, I think I thought that it's going to have more art and less language, but as the work progressed, it became sort of an equal amount, and then language became really important. My initial goal was to create a book that combined image and words in such a way that it enhanced the storytelling to where not only you, the text is, even in the final book, the text is very minimal. Mm-hmm. And so the art supports areas that are not described in the language. So it's a combination of the two, and it serves as this kind of a new kind of a book, and that's what I was wanting to do. And it was received very well, and they were interested in it.
Did you notice a particular pattern in when you decided something needed to be in text and when it needed to be illustrated instead?
I think some of it was intuitive. Obviously, language in the book serves to propel the story forward and to follow a certain narrative and arc of the character. And the art mostly is to create an atmosphere, which was quite unusual for children's literature. So I think the art served as a kind of almost set design for that story.
So the text is saying, here's what's happening, and the pictures are saying, here's where you are.
Well, yes, but both of them simultaneously really serve only one purpose, is to make the reader have a feeling, have an emotional response to the material, because that's what I was after.
How do you think the book would be received in Russia today?
It will be published in the end of this year. Mm-hmm. It's been translated right now. I don't know. I'm very curious about the response there. I know that I wouldn't be able to write a published book like this maybe 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. Things are different there now, but I don't know to what extent. From what I understood from a conversation I had with the translator, they told me it's the first book about Stalinism written for children. They don't have anything like this, and my kids don't know and possibly don't care, but they're curious to see. I don't know the answer to this.
Do you know how Stalin is being taught in schools there?
Well, probably in different schools differently. Overall, from what I understand, there's a bit of a revival of his personality, and they're notorious for rewriting history and for changing things according to the present ideology. So right now he is a great general who won World War II, because there's World War II in Russia is a master narrative. It's essentially where everything rotates around, and his role in it, according to the present ideology, the way I understand, is that of the great winner who helped the country to overcome the German invasion. Which, in truth, if you look at archives, if you read books that are written, the opposite is true. I think they won in spite of his politics, because at that point, the Soviet people were in between, essentially between two major figures, major tyrants. For one end it was Hitler, and from another was Stalin. So they have his portraits on buses, and they have little books printed on him. So I'm not sure. It'd be quite interesting to see.
Well, I think it's interesting. You do something very unusual in a children's book in the way you give us this unreliable narrative. That the way our hero, Sasha, sees the world and describes his feelings about Stalin, for example. We as adults know that he's got an awakening to come. But he doesn't know it, and I don't know if child readers know it. Do you have a sense of that?
I hope they don't. That was the whole point of it, is put the contemporary reader in a position in the head of someone who's very much like them, who's just a child, who takes his environment at face value, who trusts and loves his father, who trusts and admires his teachers, and never questions the present political situation. It's not part of most children don't. And for a regular process, it takes many, many years for us to begin to see what the structures of power are, who's in charge, what the rules of the game. Later, when we're teens, when we're in our early 20s, we begin to form some kind of idea. But that's under normal conditions. What I'm describing is very critical situations. This condition where one is brought to live a lie. And if you're not aware of it, and then you suddenly, because of the situation described in the book, you realize you're living a lie, and what is going to be your response? I think one of the most difficult situation for me was to put that scenario where there are no answers, there's no redemptive value, into essentially a Western narrative. And a story with a beginning, middle, and end, with a resolution, because it doesn't quite fit into that structure.
They're very compact. It's about 24 hours, isn't it?
It's a day and a half, yeah.
What did you think of Americans when you were growing up?
I was born in 1956, so after Stalin died, and there was a period of more liberal politics, particularly culturally. And there were films from the United States that were brought over, and one of them was The Magnificent Seven. And it played in Leningrad, and my brother took me to see it, and I didn't know anything about American culture or American history. I saw that movie, I fell in love with cowboys, and from that point on, you could not tell a bad thing about American culture. I think that movie brought me here, actually.
Well, I was born in 1956 also, and we were watching Dr. Zhivago. So we had a very different image of all this wonderful Romanov opulence then destroyed. But I think that our feeling in America was that kids, we were the same age, that kids like Russian kids were just like us, but they were being oppressed by these evil, horrible communists.
Absolutely. And also there is something to be said about when you're continually surrounded by propaganda, and anti-US propaganda was prevalent in the press, in a classroom, at home, everywhere. My father was a communist, so it was pretty rigid in that respect. And when it becomes so much of it, you begin to suspect that something's wrong, that something's odd. Why there is so much emphasis on it. And I think that kind of reflected in my book a little bit, is that slow awakening. Obviously, my father was arrested, so it's not as dramatic as in the book, but turning away and seeing somebody's side is similar to what was happening to me.
One more question for you. I went onto your website and saw that Sasha's story is greatly amplified if you go there. You get all kinds of information about him and the other characters that we don't have in the book. Did that come to you before the book, or as the book was being written, or was that a narrative created after the book was published? It's really amazing. You should all go look at this website. The stuff on there is beautiful.
Thank you. Well, that website was created after the book came out, but I was thinking of it all along because, in a way, there is, as we all know now, that the division between fiction and non-fiction is being erased, essentially. Many fiction books are written as though they're non-fiction, and vice versa. And I always felt that the story is so truthful and is so precise in terms of its historical setting and in terms of the feeling that the characters have and in terms of the letters that I began to receive from people who lived through that period after the book came out, that it just as well could be true. And so the website actually does that job. It presents artifacts of key to his apartment, photograph of his father's briefcase, all those things presented as though they are indeed those things, and they just as well could be.
Do you think that that's continue in your work to do this blend of a digital world and a print world?
I think it's certainly an area that should be explored, and it's an incredible possibility and opportunity to create art that is all-encompassing, because obviously our children are as comfortable reading a book as working their way through media, much more comfortable. My children are much more comfortable than I am. So in order to speak to the contemporary audience, I think one has to embrace that, and I think the opportunities are endless in that respect.
Well, good luck with them, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.